Why do Christians always fuss about things that Jesus never spoke about? Well, once again, the only way to answer that question is to acknowledge that the question itself is wrong. It's not wrong that Christians fuss about things. What is wrong is the limitation on what Jesus spoke about. This is how it typically goes. All you Christians are so uptight about the LGBTQ plus crowd. But Jesus never said a word about any of this. Or you Christians are always yammering on about abortion. But Jesus never said anything about abortion. Well, it's not true. It may be true if we were to embrace the great error of what we might call red letter Christianity. If we think that the Christian faith is something that arose de novo out of the nothing by Jesus, that if it was like Buddhism, that Jesus is like the Buddha and he had his own ideas and he just brought them out and there they are. That's not only not how Christians see it, it's not how Jesus saw it. Exhibit A. In the most famous sermon Jesus ever made, the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said explicitly, "Do not think that I came to abolish the law, but to fulfill it. For I tell you, not one jot or tittle will pass away until the end of time." What is Jesus saying there? Jesus is saying it's not me against the Old Testament. I'm not trying to undo or erase the Old Testament. In fact, the Old Testament can't be erased. Which means, friends, that when Jesus spoke, he spoke out of that truth. And he affirmed that truth, which we find in our Old Testaments. But wait, there's more. It's also the case that when Jesus ascended to his throne, he did not at that point close the canon of Scripture. In fact, he sent out the apostles as apostles. And an apostle is someone who goes out with the authority of the one who sends him. You know what that means? That means what Paul says is what Jesus says. It means what Peter says is what Jesus says. What Luke says is what Jesus says. What John says is what Jesus says. There's no difference. There's no higher level of authority to what Jesus himself said than there is over the words of those Jesus sent to speak. Which means, friends, that Jesus does speak to these issues. He speaks clearly to these issues. He speaks straightforwardly to these issues. Now, the Jesus in your head maybe never said nothing about this. If you have a make-believe Jesus who has no conception of biblical law or a biblical sexual morality or a biblical view of the sacredness of life, your Jesus never spoke to these things, but that's not the Jesus of the Bible. Of course Jesus speaks to these things. Which is why, even though we're not apostles, even though we're not Old Testament prophets, which is why we must speak to them too. Any Christian has to hear the words of Jesus enough to know that Jesus affirmed the authority of the Old Testament and Jesus affirmed the authority of his apostles after him. That's what it means to believe Jesus and to honor him, even when the world doesn't like it.